Thank you for coming to my presentation entitled Exploring EFL Student Use of Digital Backchannels During Collaborative Learning Activities. These are some preliminary findings from the study. My name is Peter Ilic, and I'm currently at the Center for Language Research in the School of Computer Science and Engineering at the University of Aizu. This presentation highlights several preliminary findings related to learners' use of digital communication channels during online collaborative activities. The term digital backchannel is used to imply that there are two channels of communication operating simultaneously during the collaborative activities. The predominant digital channel is that of the online learner management system, in this case Moodle, controlled by the instructor and accessed in the target language, in this case English. The secondary channel of digital communication, or digital backchannel, is that of the outside personal communication through social network systems and email that students employ to interact in their first language, Japanese. Next, I'll briefly discuss the data collection methods used. The research collected qualitative and quantitative data on learner interactions within a year-long series of collaborative language learning activities through internet logs and interviews. The activities were online discussions and accessible through a range of mobile and non-mobile devices to allow the method the participants found most agreeable. The participants were studying English at a 4-year university in Tokyo, Japan. Homework assignments were completed over 2 semesters from May to January. Electronic journals were completed throughout the course, containing student reflections on their learning. Moodle log data was used throughout the course for quantitative analysis of access patterns. A clustering analysis was done on the students' perceived similarity between objects in their educational life. Pre- and post-interviews were conducted to gain insights into the students' experiences and to clarify observed patterns in behavior. The participants in the study were 27 volunteers between the ages of 18 and 19 years of age. They were separated into 4 case study groups, A, B, C, and D. Each of these groups were in a separate class and had no in-class interaction. The collaborative activities given as homework assignments over 16 times through the Moodle website. For Semester 1, there is a total of 7 activities. For Semester 2, there are a total of 9 activities. Each week, the students would receive a new activity. They were given 1 week to complete the activity by collaborating as a group. All activities could be accessed from computer or mobile device. No preference was given for one type of device. Here is an example of one of the collaborative activities. Here the students are asked to go out into the city and record in whatever way they want an interesting or funny or unusual collocation. This could be in English or Japanese. However, the explanation had to be in English, the target language. The students would upload this example to the school website for discussion with their group. To avoid confusion, all of the collaborative activities followed the exact same pattern. However, the topic of interest changed each time. First, the homework assignment was uploaded to the website, and each student accessed the website to get their instructions. Each group member would independently find their answer to the homework and post their answer to the website. Then each group member was required to comment on another group member's answer, to give constructive criticism, or to say why they thought it was a good example, again in the target language. Then each group member would choose one of their group's answer as the best answer, giving a reason why, and explaining it in English on the Moodle website. Finally, all of the group members would discuss and choose a single answer from their group as their group's best answer. This answer would then be shared with the class in an in-class activity later in the week. This graph presents the reported methods used by students for intergroup communications from their weekly e-journal reports. Face-to-face, Moodle website via mobile device, Moodle website via desktop computer, voice call, email, other websites, meaning social network sites in this case, and there were no other means of communication reported by the students. Next, I'll discuss some preliminary findings from this study. Friend and non-friend boundaries seem to have been affected. The boundary between friends and others is blurred by the mobile phone, so possibly increasing the development of close relationships. The mobile phone used for homework allowed the students to communicate more with their group members because the phone is always present and removes the need to meet face-to-face. Although face-to-face does have advantages, it gives another option instead of face-to-face. While the students were happy to discuss a topic face-to-face with friends, they did not like the idea of meeting face-to-face with group members that they did not already know. They mentioned that they would not talk with some of them at all if the homework had just been face-to-face. However, the same students felt that the mobile phone offered a comfortable way to communicate with those students that they would otherwise not speak with, resulting in an increased chance of getting to know them better. Here is an example from the second interview from Group 2. The idea of what is a private mobile website seemed to have changed for some of the students. Mobile social network sites that the students previously used only for very private friends started to be used as another channel for communication. At the beginning of the course, mobile social network sites such as Twitter were clearly identified by the students as something they would not like to use for homework. Some students strongly expressed a need to keep some parts of their lives private from school so that they would have a way to relax. The social network sites were identified by many students as that private place in which homework is not allowed. However, this attitude changed over the year as the students started to incorporate their mobile social networks into the collaboration process. They used these systems as secondary notification channels by which their friends in the group could request an immediate and private comment on their posted homework message. These requests were seen by friends who were not in their group or even in their school, so they were able to get feedback and advice quickly and privately. In addition, the students used the mobile social networks as a way to overcome the limitations of the homework site. Some students started to use their social network because they found the interface to be much simpler than that of their homework website. The mobile social networks commonly used by the students were Twitter and Facebook, which were both primarily accessed through their mobile phones. The websites were firmly in the students' private space and not for homework, as shown by a Group 3 student's comments in Interview 1, where she clearly states that her mobile social network sites are private and just for her entertainment, so she strongly dislikes to use them to talk about homework. Several Group 2 and Group 3 students all echoed these feelings about their mobile social networks being personal and separate from homework. A Group 4 student explained in Interview 1 that even though these social networks are open to the public viewing, they hide their meaning so only her friends can understand the meaning of her messages. However, some of the students did start to use their private mobile social networks to keep track of when their group members posted a message. A Group 3 student explains in Interview 1 that her group used the mobile social networks to let each other know that there were new comments on the homework websites. The desire for more notification of any updates to their group comments suggests that these third-party sites were increasing the quality of the collaborative experiences by reducing the delay between responses. The homework website did have a mobile notification system that emailed participants after a message post, but the students were allowed at any time to turn this off for their own privacy. Since she turned off this middle notification and checked her private social networks instead, suggests that she only wanted more control over the notifications, not to eliminate them altogether. This use of these sites to keep track of homework changes continued to increase in the second semester, with a Group 3 student in Interview 2 describing her use of these mobile social network sites, which she did not mention during the first round of interviews in Semester 1. For her, these sites allowed her to reach out to friends who were not in her group, or not even in her school, and to ask them for advice on the homework. This is evidence that these sites provide more information on the topic of discussion than would be available to her without them. Here we have an example from 2 interviews from the same student. Interview 1 was done at the beginning of the study. Interview 2 was done at the end of the study. Here, a Group 4 student shows a clear change in attitude concerning the private and public space in which her mobile social networks belong. She explains clearly in Interview 1 that the social network sites that she accesses only with her mobile are separated from her school life. When asked why she separates the two, she explains that one is for her private things, the other is her study space. Here she is clearly identifying a homework space and a separate private space. This example suggests that most students see the homework website, what she calls your website, for everyone to use, and mobile social networks for those people she socializes with. However, in Interview 2, when asked about these same websites, she says that her group did start to use them for homework when they were close to the deadline. They were for the most part not using the sites for discussion, but to post status updates on Twitter and Mixi, because they knew that all their friends were constantly monitoring these sites with mobile phones, so it was the best source of real-time information updates on the activities of other group members. Students are self-motivated and actively trying to remove any barriers that exist to their way of doing. It appears that Mixi, Twitter, and other sites were used to overcome the limitations that the students felt existed with my site, Moodle. Here she is referring to an interface for the mobile site used in this research, which required mobile users to choose their location before entering their password. Twitter was a much simpler design, which the students were used to using, so they may have been discouraged by what they saw as too many steps on my website. The evidence in this section suggests that homework communication on mobile leads to these previously private mobile communication paths being hijacked in a way for homework. Social network sites seem to be providing an alternative information stream, which is a mixing of public homework and private social spaces through the mobile. Mobile has fewer barriers for the students than computer communications, for some barriers still exist, especially due to inefficient design of the interface. There are many more interview examples supporting the students' feelings of these barriers. Just as face-to-face was used to increase depth and quality of communications for some, mobile social network sites were used to overcome the limitations of my site. Students do everything they can to make the communication more efficient, so increasing collaborative quality, which should be a positive effect on the richness of learning. Next, the use of language changed between the private social networks and the public homework page. The students clearly placed their first language, in this case Japanese, into their private world of communication, while their second language, English, was used for public communications. When communicating face-to-face, texting, or on their mobile social network sites, the language of communication was usually Japanese, as reported by the students in the interviews. Alternatively, the homework website, which can be seen by everyone, including the course instructor, is an all-English language environment. They are allowed short Japanese examples of a few words when explaining a translation, but otherwise everything must be in English. This public forum for their language was difficult for those students who lacked confidence in their English ability. So in order to reduce the chances of a potentially embarrassing public mistake, they used their private mobile communication channels to check their ideas with friends and others with which they felt more confident. Similar findings appear in the research literature on mobile devices. Students began to fit the mobile learning activities on their mobile phone into their already existing preferred practices, was reported by Walcott. They access a homework website while they were playing a game or reading their social network site, switching rapidly between entertainment and education as a way of relieving the boredom of the commute, as reported by Lawson. Static learning contests like the classroom are increasingly being replaced by learner-generated contexts in which students determine the resources they need, as reported by Lukin. The mobile phone allows students to participate in two different interactions at the same time. Reti. Students would often enter their private social network sites to share thoughts on the homework in Japanese because it allows them to alternate channel of communication. Gikus and Grant. These private websites would allow a deeper level of communication because they were using their first language and it was not being monitored by the instructors. Again, Gikus and Grant. In addition, David Gradall, a linguist better known for his work on the future of the English language, conducted some early research in asynchronous computer-mediated dialogue and concluded that it had many differences from face-to-face dialogue. including the capacity to support metalinguistic comments, such as those reported in this study, without diverting the flow of conversation. Gickus reported in his study of higher education students that they would often use SNS to share thoughts with each other because Twitter was easier to log into, so allowed them a faster exchange of ideas. This is similar to the comment from this study. When anonymous discussion is provided by the mobile devices, learners engage in the discussion at a deeper level because the focus remains on the content and not on the concern of answering incorrectly. Again, this coincides with the findings of this research. Thank you again for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions or would like to contact me, please feel free to email me at any time. Thank you again.